Alright, we're going to play some Alien Isolation. I'm going to try to make as few edits as possible so that I don't accidentally change settings and people get confused. But I have a controller profile for the game. I'm going to remove it completely. And then I am going to build up a new profile completely from scratch. So let's get into it. Alright, so the controller has been completely wiped. Every single input on it has been completely removed. The controller no longer does anything. So we're going to go into the software and we're going to start building up a profile from scratch. This is a very contrived scenario because typically there will be community profiles that you can download. There will be templates that come with the software that you can enable. But really, to give you a really in-depth explanation as to how to build up your controls to where they are most comfortable, the best way to do that would be a ground up configuration like the one that I'm going to be doing, because just choosing a community profile doesn't really show you the in-depth of how exactly everything is working. So we'll go into the Steam software, and first and foremost, in order to even get into the game, we need to navigate the menu. So we should probably set up our analog stick first. So we'll go here, go to type of input. Alien Isolation does not have controller support. It only has support for a keyboard and mouse. So all of the controls that you will be assigning for the controller are specifically for keyboard and mouse. So we have to choose directional pad. Radial with overlap is the best option because it allows you to go northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest, as well as north, southeast, and west. So it gives you the most amount of flexibility. I don't recommend analog emulation for first-person and third-person games because they will make your camera look very stuttery. And while it is very good software and good implementation, this just isn't the right context for that tool. So radial with overlap is probably your best bet. So we'll just assign the W, A, S, and Valve, you're not making this easy for me, man. W, A, S, and D, and we want it to be rather sensitive, so whatever dead zone there is, there shouldn't be a dead zone, but we'll just reduce that a little bit just to be sure. What other settings? These aren't important, we're not going to be using them. So okay, now W, A, S, and D should work in the game. So if I go back to the game, I should be able to move around. That's the only thing that I can do. Can't use the camera, can't use any other controls, I can just move around. And it seems to work pretty well. Got WASD, and it honestly feels like an analog stick. It honestly does. Because you really cannot tell that you only have 8 points of direction, because when you're moving in a circle like this, it just feels very fluid. It probably even looks pretty fluid on the camera. Yeah, I'm watching it on the stream, and I'm watching it on the game, and it's fine. So, okay, we'll go back into the software. What do we need to do next? Well, we need to know what keys we're even assigning. So, the best way to do this is to go into the options, go into the game's input mapping. You have to read this while you're assigning your keys. You have to refer back to this unless you have like a super solid memory. Okay, so in games, I typically like to do sprint, jump, and crouch on the back grips as much as possible, because those movement mechanics seem really intrusive when I have to take either of my thumbs off the analog stick or the right touchpad. If I have to take either of my thumbs off either of those two inputs, it impedes the functionality of the device. And it impedes the gameplay, because then I either have to stop moving or I have to stop looking in order to jump or crouch or walk. Walking, some games don't even support walking, but generally there's a crouch and a jump, or a sprint, or something like that. So with this game, there's sprint and crouch. There's no jump, there's no traverse, there's no vault or anything like that. It's just sprint and crouch. So if I'm constantly moving the analog stick to move in a particular direction, well, I don't really want to be gripping this side of the controller to do that, because I'm already going to be having to physically, manually move this joystick around, and it's going to be very straining to have to hold down the left grip in order to sprint in the game. So sprint is something that I probably want to assign to the right grip, so that I can kind of have an equal distribution of tension between both hands. It'll be most comfortable. So sprint is shift. So go into the software and find the right grip and just assign it to shift. And we can even label it sprint. We can even label these if we want. Up, down, left, right. Radio. Seems simple enough. So now we have sprint over here, crouch over here. Can't remember what the crouch button was. It was C. So over here we'll put a C. And that is... what? That is crouch. Wow. Today I learned my left hand is useless for typing. So okay, what comes next? Aim, change focus, right and left mouse button you generally want as the triggers, right? It makes sense. Iron sight, shoot. So in this game, you can do a couple of different things. So aim, change focus, fire, throw, melee. Like I said, this game does not have controller support, so these inputs won't be analog, so you don't even need to really use the soft pull. You can assign the soft pull and the hard pull to the same action. That way, when you press it, it doesn't matter if there's a soft pull, it doesn't matter if there's a hard pull, it doesn't matter if you pull it down halfway, all the way in a click. It won't matter. It'll do the same thing. So if you want really sensitive controls, you can set the triggers to hair touch, and you'll always get the input. So okay, that's right mouse button and left mouse button. So go to your trigger, full pull action. We'll go to, I think this one should be the right mouse button because your left is usually your iron sight. So right mouse should be over here, and we'll assign the same one to the soft pull. And generally you want your iron sight to be simple threshold. You don't want it to be hair trigger, because any movement in the opposite direction will cancel the iron sight input. So you want it to be set to simple threshold, and you generally want a little bit of extra play just in case you accidentally disengage it. So I usually set the soft pull point pretty far to the left, and I set it as simple threshold. That way I don't accidentally lose my iron sight in the middle of combat when I'm fucking getting excited and getting into it. You don't need analog, so you can turn analog off. If you want it extra feather touch, you can set the start range all the way to the left. It won't matter too much. Response curve is irrelevant because it's not analog. So we can do the same thing over here. We can set this to the left mouse button. And we do want this hair trigger. We do. And we can set the soft pull point again, kind of more sensitive than it typically is. We can also set the start range a little bit more sensitive than it typically is. Turn the analog off. There we go. Now we have aiming, and we have shoot. What? So okay, what comes next on our list of inputs? the use key, the E key, which also doubles as enter in this game. Typically you want something like that assigned to the button pad. I'm thinking probably A would be fine. So the use key is E, we'll set that to A. So that means that we need to go over the button pad and actually assign a button pad. Oh, it already comes with all of these buttons, but these are meaningless to us because we're using a keyboard. So we have to reassign these. So this one is now E, and we'll set a label for that as use, so that we know what the hell it does. Actually, we should set labels for these two. Aim, change focus. So aim, change focus. And for the left one, it's fire, use, and melee. So fire, melee, and throw, is it? Can't remember. Yeah, fire, throw, and melee. That's fine. It's close enough. Fire, throw, and melee. Aim, change focus, crouch, sprint. And then we have our use key down here, which we just assigned. Radial menu. Now, the radial menu is tricky because it's for weapon swapping. So you don't want it in a spot that's going to have to necessitate you moving your fingers off of either the left analog stick or the touchpad. But it's going to be tricky because this game doesn't have controller support. So navigating the radial menu is going to be really weird. Especially if you can't get mouse joystick to work. If you can't set up a modifier or a mode shift to change the mouse input to mouse joystick, it's going to feel really weird. But there might not be a way around it because this game does not have controller support, but we'll try to make the best of it and we'll deal with it when we get there. So let's just pick something for it. Radial menu, let's set that to Y, because why not? And what was it? It was Q. Reload and activate. We can probably set that to X. I generally like that as my reload button. So what was it? It was R. Of course it's R. So now we go here and we can set that to R. Reload. Activate. And this one was radial menu. Peak? Oh, you know. Well, peak, you're normally standing still for peak. So it doesn't matter if I have to take my finger off of this. But I don't want it set to B, I don't think. We'll figure out something for that. I might set it to one of the bumpers. This is behaving really strangely. Tab left and tab right. That's important for navigating like the mini games in the game. So tab left and tab right. Probably one on the direction pad. We'll get to that. Why is this thing behaving so strangely? Okay. So where were we exactly? Peak. I don't know what I'm going to set that to. I'll figure it out later. Next weapon, previous weapon. Well, since we have the radial menu, we don't need to actually deal with numbers 1 through 5 or anything like that. We don't need to screw around with that. Because we have the radial menu, we'll just open that up anytime that we want to weapon swap or change weapons. Select motion tracker. We could set that to the left bumper. So what is that? Motion tracker is space. So go over here, go to the bumper, motion tracker. Actually, just to make it look less sloppy, we could just call it tracker. That's probably fine. And then we'll go down here and select space. So now when we press the left bumper, we'll get our motion tracker. Right bumper, no idea yet. Need to keep reading. Flashlight, probably set it to the flashlight. Yeah, why not? We can always change it later. So, flashlight was F. I always forget to put the label on first. That's okay, though. This is supposed to be boring. It's almost like being in a classroom. Select, we'll probably set that to the map. Map menu's tab, so select can just be tab. We'll set that to as map, and then set it as tab. So now that'll bring up the map, really self-explanatory. Jeez, that was weird. We can have this set to enter for like navigating the menus and stuff like that, because you need to assign a key to enter and escape. I think this could be either enter or escape. I'm not sure. This could be escape, I think, because I think actually spacebar and enter do the same thing in the menu. So this one can be escape. The start button can be escape. That way you can actually go to the menu. I was wrong about it being enter. This game, space and enter do the same thing in the menus, so it's very easy just to set the start button to escape, and then we'll go to the menu, and then we can navigate through it, and then we can get back into the game whenever we want by just hitting start. So it'll function almost like a console, which is nice. Okay, this we already know will probably have to be a direction pad. And we're going to want radial without overlap, because we don't want to hit two of these inputs at the same time. Require click on, because we don't want to hit an input accidentally. We would rather be very sure about what we're going to hit. Dead zone, there shouldn't be a dead zone because there is no there is no controller support for the game, but I like to kind of remove it a little bit just to be on the safe side. I don't think it does a damn thing, but might as well. So we have a direction pad here. Now we need to go into here to figure out what to put in there. Tab left and tab right. U and I. So tab left and right. So this one, tab left. And that one should be U. And then tab right. And that one should be I. What else? Oh, we're almost at the end here. So we have a few extra inputs right here if we wanted to assign anything else. It's just easier to use the mouse wheel. Reload, activate, peak. Oh yeah, we haven't assigned peak yet. I actually think that I might want peak as Y, now that I think about it. In the radial menu, I'll set to this one over here. So I'll set this to Q, and that can be the radial menu. And then this one, I'll set that to peak. And what is peak again? Peak is control. So I'll set that to control. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh yeah, the graphics screw up if you turn toggle multi-button on and then you turn it off. The graphics go fucking bonkers. I don't know why. Nothing gets rid of it. Not even if you remove the button pad and bring it back, the graphics are still screwed. Not if you completely remove the input and remove the label, the graphics are still screwed up. heck? So, okay. Close radial menu. Oh, that's two different options, eh? So one is for the menu and one is for the radial menu. So if you're in the menu and you want to close things, or if you're in a puzzle game in the game and you want to close something, you have to hit the radial menu button. I don't want to touch that. You know, how about in this case we can have two different inputs on the controller handle the same input in the game. We'll just use them for two different contexts, so it'll seem like they're two different buttons. So close and radial menu, we'll just set it to the same thing. So that's Q over here. That would just be, and for the sake of clarity, we can put close right there. So now one says radial menu, should be right there, and the other says close. They're the same input, they're both Q, but we're going to be using them in two different contexts, so it'll almost seem like they're two different inputs. D-pad down, I don't know what to put there. Could always do like a quick weapon swapping option with that, I suppose. Like if there's like next weapon, mouse wheel down, why not, right? Like I could just put mouse wheel down right there. And then that could be like a weapon swapping button, I don't know. Why not, right? So everything's been assigned so far. We have everything where it should be. Now we assign the input, and the only input that we have to choose from is the mouse. Now here's where you have to actually edit some game settings. You should be going into the game and setting your mouse sensitivity relatively low. It should not be in the middle like this. It shouldn't be up here. It should be as close to the bottom as you can get it. Like, that's probably fine. Sometimes if you completely bottom it out to the left side, it won't even do anything. I don't know why some games would give you 0 sensitivity, but usually close to the bottom will be more than sufficient. But I'll just leave it there for the sake of the video, I guess. Just so if we need to tinker with it, that's even more content, so who cares, right? So okay, let's look around. Whoa, the camera is mud. The camera is mud, man. Okay, so we got to fix the camera. Sensitivity, first thing that we need to try is setting the sensitivity balls to the wall and then scaling it down. So let's try this. Way too high. Way too high. It's bonkers. So let's scale it back a little bit. See how that feels. I'm not sure how I feel about doing a complete 180 off of one swipe. So maybe we'll shorten the decay a little bit for the trackball. That feels pretty twitchy, like if I'm running around. So the sprint works, I'm holding down the right grip, sprinting around, it works. So my left bumper should bring up my tracker, and my left trigger should change my depth of field. And it's not set to hair trigger, so I can even wiggle it a little bit and I won't lose my depth of field control. And then when I don't have the tracker on, I have my iron sight, which I also have wiggle room for. And then I can shoot with the right trigger, turn on my flashlight with the right bumper. I can peek with Y, which is fine to have to take my thumb off of the trackpad in order to use peek, because you're standing still while you peek, so you don't actually need to be like looking around. I suppose looking around is a little bit more useful than moving. Actually, it would be useful. I correct myself. It would be useful to be able to look around and peek at the same time. So maybe this is what we can do. If we want to peek on the fly and 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 uh, and just look around, we can go click action, and we can set this to a secondary peek, and just set it to peek. So now when we click, we can still look around, but we're peeking. That seems reasonable to me. The only thing is that we can't swing the camera because we have to hold down the button. So is there any way we can figure out to get around this? Perhaps with crouch we can add an activator that would do a double press bound to control for peek. And if this works, maybe we can get ourselves a peek out of a double tap. Probably need to adjust some settings for the double press. Double tap time, probably need to increase it until it's comfortable. Doesn't seem to be working at all, actually. The haptic feedback for that particular option is working. So this is set way too high. That's probably fine. Maybe we'll toggle. Maybe we can fiddle around with toggle. It's kind of clumsy. It works, and I can look around, and I don't even have to be holding anything down to peek. I mean, it kind of works. Yeah, that's actually quite comfortable now that I adjust the double tap time. I could get used to that pretty easily. Although having it assigned with crouch as well kind of makes it clumsy. Like, you kind of have to be really careful. It's still really clumsy. I thought it was smooth for a moment there. Like, I can crouch while it's toggled. I would rather have it a hold. But there doesn't seem to be a way to do that. How would I do that? Let's turn toggle off and see if we can get it to work as a hold. I'm not... Ah, there we go. I wonder why it wasn't working before. Wait, toggle is off. Why is it still toggling? Valve. You're breaking my heart, Valve. This isn't the way it's supposed to happen. I wish you could get a double tap and a hold. It seems like it's just a double tap to perform a single action, not necessarily hold the action, which is really unfortunate. You should be able to double tap and hold. Like, really? It doesn't work that way? How about we'll set this to long press, and we'll set the regular press to a toggle. That way, if we want to crouch, we toggle the crouch. Toggling crouches in a lot of games. A lot of people should be used to toggling crouch. It makes sense. But then we can do a long hold. I mean, the delay kind of sucks. Kind of really sucks. It's like having massive input lag. And there's no way to really fix that. Long press. No, there doesn't seem to be a separate control here for it. Oh, there is. Long press time. Thank fuck for that. I was worried there for a second. I was just in the wrong menu. My bad. It's a little better. It just doesn't feel like it has that much of a difference. I'm sure I'd notice if I set it up here. Oh, yeah. That is longer. Okay, so apparently I want this completely bottomed out to the left side. So, toggle crouch. It doesn't seem to work all of the time. That's probably because I have the long press so low. Bear with me, guys. We're learning together. Okay. So, I seem to have to press crouch twice in order to get it to even work. So, it's just regular press. Maybe it's just not playing nice with it now because that one's so low. You just have to get used to pressing the button before you start looking around. But I think it is handy to have the peek as a button that will allow you to use the joystick and look around at the same time. And this is probably the best way to do it without assigning it to one of the two bumpers. I mean, you could do that. We could do this completely differently. We could have the long press here instead of being peek. We could just set it to the tracker. I mean, why don't we just do that? And then go down here and set that to space, and then regular press will still be crouch. And then for the tracker, we can go peek and have that set to control. And now, I mean, oh, that's strange. Now I can't navigate the menu. Okay, so apparently tracker needs to be there because space, right, is enter in the menu. So if you want to be able to navigate the menu comfortably, you don't want to have to hold down a button. Ugh, that's annoying, eh? Okay, so let's think about this. How can we set this up in a way that's really comfortable? Use for E, I absolutely want that set to A because, I mean, that's your use key is going to be what you're going to be using to interact with everything in the environment in the game, and you're going to be using that way more than space to navigate the menus. So it looks like the tracker has to stay where it is, unfortunately, because that is the most comfortable leftover input to have for space. Unless we actually change the inputs in the game. I mean, we could do it that way too. We can go into here, or how to do this now. We can go into here, go into the game, go to input mapping, and we can actually change these if we wanted to. So peak, we can set that to space, and then what was the other one? Peak and tracker, motion tracker. We'll just set that to control. So we'll just swap those two. So now Tracker, we can set that back to peak and keep it space. And now tracker over here for the long press, we set that to control. Now it should work. Like to apply the changes? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Ah, okay. Now we can peek with the bumper and still look around. And now we can pull. Now we can whip out our motion tracker by holding down the grip. And if we want to toggle between crouching and standing, apparently we still have to hit it twice. I don't understand that at all. I was thinking that we could set the crouch to double press, but then we'd be encountering the same issue anyway. I mean, what would happen if I turn the toggle off? I'd probably crouch and get the motion tracker at the same time, would I not? Yes. Okay. How to do this now? How to do this? So the crouch, the only way it's going to work there is if we set it as a toggle. Maybe if I turn interruptible off? I mean, that's actually pretty comfortable. I just don't quite understand why I need to hit this twice in order to crouch, and then hit it twice in order to stand up. I don't get it. There doesn't seem to be any obvious reason for this in the software. Probably want to turn that back on. I'm stumped. That could just be an anomaly with the game, I suppose. Not handling toggles very well, because you actually can't set toggles in the game. But should be able to do it relatively easily with the software. The software would just tell the game that it is receiving a continuous keystroke. That's all that the toggle would do. I don't understand exactly how it would behave, what would be causing it to behave in this way. Okay, so that brings up the motion tracker, and if I want to, I can peek around. Just realized that my camera is right in the middle this entire time. Oh well, doesn't really matter. We were fiddling around with the software, so I can move the camera back over there now, because we're mostly going to be fiddling around with the game now. Yeah, I guess I'll just have to accept it as a double click. Double click to crouch, double click to stand up, and then hold to get your motion tracker. Left bumper to look around while peeking and everything. Now let's set the mouse, because what I like to do with the mouse, we'll take this peek off of there. That doesn't make any sense anymore. I actually don't like having an input assigned to the right click. It's just a preference. I usually set it as nothing. Mode shifting. We'll take care of mode shifting after we have the base camera configured. So trackball friction set to high is what is comfortable with this game, apparently. Rotation. Let's check the rotation. The way you check the rotation, you just spin comfortably. If you stay completely horizontal, see, I'm starting to look at the ceiling. That means that I have the rotation set too low. If you're starting to look up, the rotation set too low. If you're starting to look down, the rotation set too high. So the rotation, I should actually have it set a little bit higher, believe it or not. Maybe it's just the way I'm sitting, who knows. But there's the horizon line again. And I am no longer looking up at the ceiling. A little bit. You can see me start to creep up a little bit. So we'll bump that up by one more notch. Looking around the horizon. Starting to drift toward the ceiling, but it's not nearly as severe as it was before. One thing I also like to do is I like to give a little bit more vertical scale in a game. I like the vertical scale to be a little bit more sensitive than it is by default. I also like to take down the smoothing just a touch and set the minimum movement threshold just a couple notches above there. Maybe not for the camera. That's something I definitely like to do for the iron sight aiming, is fiddle around with the minimum movement threshold. But this is typically how I have it set up for a game. And that, like games where you're looking up and down a lot, like Shadow of Mordor or Dying Light, or games like that where, especially Dying Light, where you have to be looking up and down constantly to find ledges to jump to. You want the vertical scale to actually be pretty substantial relative to the horizontal scale, because especially in a game like Dying Light, you're going to be looking up and down to find ledges to climb to way more than you're actually going to be looking left and right, which is the complete opposite of the way it's typically configured in a game, or the way it's typically comfortable in a game. But now see what's happened. I set my vertical scale a little higher, and now the horizontal sensitivity is a little bit weird. So now I need to go back into here and bump this sensitivity up to compensate just a little bit. And the friction scale, probably need to bring that down a little bit so that the horizontal axis has a little bit more wiggle room, has a little bit less friction. So yeah, that's way more comfortable. That's almost perfect. I'm looking up and down pretty easily, left and right pretty easily. So now we're going to do some aim testing to try to fine-tune it a little bit more. It's the same sensitivity whether or not I have the iron sight engaged. We'll fix that. But first we'll see whether or not it even needs fixing. So I'm going to do a 180. I'm going to try to aim for that screen right there. And I'm going to miss. But that's the point. We're going to fine-tune it to the point where I will get a more accurate shot later. This is just for the purpose of configuring this. So, okay. I'm going to turn, aim as fast as I can. Now, it wasn't quite as fast as I'd like. Still, it's quick. Better than an analog controller, better than an Xbox controller, but still not quite good enough. PC Master Race, what the fuck? We need to be able to do this quickly and efficiently. So, okay, what we're going to do is set up, since we have the camera configured exactly the way we like it, we're going to set up a mode shift to be another mouse. But we're gonna reduce the sensitivity quite a bit. Gonna keep trackball mode on. Maybe we'll leave it at medium and see how it feels. We're gonna set a minimum movement threshold kind of high. We're gonna try to get rid of a lot more smoothing, and we're gonna leave the sensitivity vertical scale where it is. So we're altering a lot of parameters with this mode shift, and the mode shifting button will be left trigger full pull. Actually, we should probably set it to left trigger or left trigger soft pull. Actually, well, I'm going to be pulling the fucker all the way down anyway, so we can set it to full pull. It doesn't matter. And we'll set the haptics off because haptics are annoying. That's one thing that I would like to do, is globally take off all of the haptics because they're so goddamn irritating. Okay, so we have a mode shift that changes a lot of the sensitivity parameters, and we're going to want to fix this. Yeah, one more notch up, I think. Yeah, close enough. So, okay. I don't know why it puts it 50-50 for the mode shift. No clue. Absolutely no clue. But we'll try out aiming now and see how it works. So I'm gonna look, aiming. Aiming is a lot less sensitive now. And the minimum movement threshold, I can see it on the screen. I can see it working on the screen. And it offers you a lot of precision. So I'm gonna turn, overshot. Seems like I was doing better with the, so for the mode shift, sensitivity just needs to be a little bit higher so that I can still move around pretty quick. Okay, so the vertical scale needs to be a little bit higher because I was not able to look down quickly enough. The smoothing could also be fixed. A little bit more minimum movement threshold and... Okay, so let's look at the wall. Accidentally hit the wrong fucking button. There we go. Gotcha. Gotcha, motherfucker. So I've configured it so that if I do a complete 180, I'm pretty much where I want to be. So that's how I would go about configuring the mouse controls. So pretty much exactly where I'd like... Pretty much exactly where I'd like to be with the mouse. Actually, I can feel that the minimum movement threshold is a little bit too high. So yeah, I'm not going to touch these. I'm perfectly happy with them. So everything seems to be pretty well laid out. So let's play a little Alien Isolation and see how the controls work. Invalid device. So use lever is E. So the game is giving you instructions that don't correspond to the controller because the game has no controller support. So what's E? Well, E is set to A, so we have to press A in order to use the lever. Right mouse button is the left trigger. Sorry, but that's the way it is. So hold that, press S, which is pulling the analog stick down. We'll open the door. Hold down reload to reload my weapon. Actually, it would be nice to be able to reload the weapon while, it would be nice to be able to reload the weapon without compromising looking around. So maybe we can set a secondary control for the click action to be reload, so that I can still look around somewhat. But I can still, but I can reload. So for some reason the click is not working. Oh, maybe it was the mode shifting click that I did. Did I? No. Click action is R for reload. What the fuck? Yeah. For some reason, it's just straight up not working. Oh wait, there we go. At least it allows you to look around a little bit. I like to be able to have the full use of the trackpad while I'm doing stuff. That's why I never really assign things to the trackpad, especially if you have to hold them. I mean, you get to look around a little bit while you're reloading, but it's still very, very clumsy. Is there a way that we can reload without having to compromise? I think so. What if we set an activator for the flashlight? So how would we do this? We have to hold the button down to reload. So maybe we should set the flashlight to a toggle, maybe a double tap toggle, and then, or we could just set it to double tap, or we could set reload to hold for the right bumper. So okay, let's set this to reload, and that can be R. So now you just press it and hold, and it will reload. And we can set up another activator that will do a double press with the binding, what did I want it to be? It was the flashlight, so that's F, right? F, right? Should be F. And I think the flashlight is toggled in the game anyway. Yeah, it would have to be. It wouldn't make sense if it wasn't. Haptics off, because haptics are annoying. Oh, whoops. And for this one, we'll do flashlight. Okay, so now I hold this down. Oh, it's already reloaded. So I hold this down, I can reload, I can look around, or I double tap. Maybe it's not F. Maybe I'm just not remembering this correctly. Input mapping. Where is the flashlight? Flashlight is... Did I miss it? Am I just losing my mind? Select motion tracker, select flashlight. It's F. Yeah, I was right. What the heck? So configure, double press for flashlight. Maybe maybe that just needs to be extended a bit. Regular press, so you hold and then it works properly like it should, and then a double press should get you your flashlight toggle. I don't understand what's so difficult about this. No, don't save the changes. I didn't make any changes, yo. Am I doing something wrong? There's a cat behind me. Well, that doesn't appear to work at all. That's F for flashlight with a double press, maybe toggle? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. There we go. So now reload. The double tap and the regular press just weren't playing nice together. I guess it happens. And now it's not letting me turn on my flashlight. There we go. That seems really weird. I've never encountered this problem before. Maybe I need to set the double tap time lower and the long press time maybe a little higher. There's got to be a sweet spot here to get these two controls to work properly. Come on, man. Come on. Well, okay, how about this? We'll fucking bite the bullet and say, screw this. Because apparently it's not working. We'll have this set to regular press with no fancy bells or whistles. It's just reload. And for the mouse, we'll just have this set to the goddamn flashlight. I'm not quite sure what I was doing wrong. I don't think I was doing anything wrong, or maybe there's... I mean, this is beta. The activator's options are only available if you opt into the beta right now at the time I'm making this video. So maybe they don't work properly. Because I was setting them up exactly how, you know, they should be set up to do what I was intending to do. It just wasn't working. So okay, now flashlight is set to the camera, the right trackpad tap. So okay, and now I can reload and look around at the same time. Because in this game you have to hold it down to reload. It's supposed to add this to the suspense. Apparently it just makes it really difficult to map controls. So, got our iron sight with our simple threshold. We have our hair trigger. We have our peak. We have our trackpad, or our trackpad. We have our tracker. We have our crouch toggle. We have our sprint with the right grip. Apparently we have a secondary tracker button, but it doesn't matter. We have a few inputs on here that really aren't for anything. Our D-pad down is our weapon swapping. And then when we're in mini games, our D-pad left and right, our tab left and right. When we're looking at like consoles and stuff like that. And I guess that is also reload. But it's also set to activate, I think. So because we're going to be using these in two different contexts, we could actually just we could call this on here. We could just call this activate. So now it's activate when we're using it for menus and stuff like that. X would be activate. And then when we're just in the environment and we're reloading our weapon, R will also be for reload using the bumper. So we have a couple keys or a couple inputs that are in the same, like in two different spots on the controller, but they're used in two different contexts, so it doesn't even really matter. But everything looks fine. So if we look at the radial menu, this is what I meant by it's going to be weird. You actually have to use the mouse to select whatever you want on the radial menu. And mouse joystick doesn't work because the game is not looking for any joystick information. It's just looking for mouse information. So this is literally how it works. It sucks, but that is the best you're going to get out of the radial menu, is being able to move the mouse around the radius, which I guess at the end of the day, if you're flooring it to the edge of the screen, doesn't feel all that different than an analog stick. So that's how that works. Can't really get it to function any other way. As far as weapon swapping is concerned, there's no real way to set up a touch menu for it, because we've exhausted all of our inputs on the left and right side. So I'm not sure if that would work. I personally don't really like using the gyro, but I mean, you could, if you wanted to. You could have the gyro set to mouse. Oh wait, no, I don't want mode shifting. That's just the gyro. Yeah. Enable button would be left trigger full pull, probably. Yeah. Sensitivity, I mean, set it at half, see what happens. Rotation, that's the one thing I don't like about the gyro, is that it's hard to set the rotation because sometimes I'm sitting like this. And sometimes, well, my right ass cheek starts to hurt, and I have to switch to the left, and then I'm sitting like this. So the gyro doesn't really accommodate exactly how I'm going to be sitting 50% of the time. Or I guess if I'm sitting straight, it only accommodates me 33% of the time. So that's why I don't really use the gyro, because it isn't an intuitive feature with the controller. It's a nice touch, just I don't really like it that much. And we'll just set all this stuff to normal and see how it functions. Okay. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I can understand how people like it. It's just difficult to get used to how the movements relate to your camera movement on the screen. And after you get used to it, I can imagine somebody using this. I just personally don't really like it too much. So, I fucking disable that shit. Because it honestly doesn't work for me. So, whoops, wrong button. That was my fault, that wasn't the game. So let's try one of the little mini games. So look for a signal, found it. I have to put in the silly little code. Got it. How about this one? Oh, we don't have the plasma torch yet. So, do we have a map here? No, I think I already took it. Oh, it's gonna be a cutscene. But
I sent you a clear directive not to land on station.
I told you we didn't hear you.
We need the transit to get to HQ, but it's down. Transit control is upstairs. Samuel says you're an engineer. Go make yourself useful, seeing as you screwed up there.
I keep on pressing X instead of A. So, I mean, this works as well as can be expected. So what was my lean again? Can I lean and aim at the same time? Oh, that sucks. Usually in games like this you can lean and aim at the same time. So what was my flashlight? Yeah, there we go. Okay, well here would be a pretty good test. So E would be A, and then left and right mouse button, and then A would be left on the joystick. So that'd be the two triggers, and then moving the joystick left. So I mean, like, you just have to get used to what the keys represent on the controller. Is the door just not opening? Come on, bro. Don't do that to me. There we go. Yeah, I'm actually very satisfied with these controls, because they allow the most amount, they allow for the least amount of downtime for my two thumbs off of the joystick and the trackpad, which I really, really like. The longer I can keep those two fingers or my two thumbs on the joystick and the trackpad, the better it will be for gaming, because I won't have to actually compromise on whether or not I can look around or whether or not I can move, which I think is amazing. Any way that you can configure the controls that allows for that is amazing for gameplay, because then you could do all sorts of weird things looking around and stuff like that, and you don't have to actually take your fingers off, and that's just so nice. So we just spent an hour configuring probably one of the more difficult games to configure for the Steam controller. And really, it wasn't that big of a headache, and the only reason it took an hour is because I'm commentating it, and we're going through things one by one. If it was, I did it again. But if it was just me alone and I wasn't talking about any of the settings and I was just going through them, this probably would have taken closer to maybe 10-15 minutes. But yeah, I think that's all. That's all I can really show you. Everything else is just pretty much just intuitive from here. So yeah, I hope this helped. Maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future, but I hope this helps somebody.